Hey, good morning, sunshine, up and at 'em. Yes, it is. It is Monday, March 31st, the end of the month and the beginning of the work week, right? So, what are we going to be talking about today? Well, I thought a good topic would be communication. Whether it's communication with friends, loved ones, and customers, and why it's vital that we do have the proper communications. Hang tight. Alrighty, welcome to the channel. My name is Eric, if you didn't already know it. And yes, this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Monday, March 31st of 2025. So what are we talking about when it comes to communication? It's understanding that most people are not mind readers. Unless we're talking about that psychic that got a hold of me a couple weeks back and told me I was a super great person with a great aurora around me. But the minute I mentioned and asked that I told her that I was poor and was there money in my future, crickets. And I can remember bringing it up to my daughter, telling her that my experience of how this psychic didn't get back to me. And what should I do? And she said, not a problem, Dad, I can handle that. She goes, I can do a reading for you. It's only going to cost you 99 cents for the first minute and $15 for every minute afterwards. You can tell she's my daughter. But why are we talking about communication? I don't care whether it's a friendship. I don't care whether it's a relationship. I don't care if it's a relationship of a store owner, a repair shop and a customer, to a repair owner and a mechanic, to a customer. It's all about effectively communicating what your wants and needs are. Because people are not mind readers. And in order for that shop to run effectively, we each need to communicate what our wants and needs are to each other, right? As a business owner, you need to communicate to your mechanic what the expectations are. And you can't set the bar high. I'm sorry. You need to set the bar where that person has a chance of at least completing part of it. See, I've seen owners have such high expectations that employee could never meet. And I've seen employees decide, why even try if I can't meet it? Are they effectively communicating with each other? Absolutely not. Wouldn't the better answer when it comes to somebody like that, of the owner sitting down with the mechanic and asking, what do you think is possible as far as getting work knocked out of this shop on a daily, weekly basis? What can I do to help you? Now, that sets the tone right there and opens the door for the mechanic to talk back and explain what they think they can do and get stuff done, and how they can get it done faster. And that simply might be having certain parts in stock to draw from, so they're not waiting for the parts to come in to get the unit out. It could be we need certain types of equipment in here. In order to do that, we may need a lawnmower lift per se. And it doesn't have to be the expensive, $2-3 grand one. It could be just simply the hydraulic one that you can buy for under $300, I think, at Harbor Freight or Tractor Supply. But it's effectively communicating back and forth to help each other out. See, the owner needs a good mechanic, and the mechanic needs a good job. So they're both actually wanting the same thing. But if only one side gets heard, that's not properly communicating either, is it? And this carries over into your relationships with your better half or good friends. You know, I've always said that this world is made up of three different types of people. You have the givers, the takers, and then you have the ones in between. The ones in between probably are what makes up the most. You can't continue to give to somebody that just keeps sucking you dry. But in order for that person to do it, you have to allow it, right? And you can't be a conqueror and conquer everybody that you come upon and not take what their needs are into account, right? Because you'll end up standing alone. So the more effective way to communicate is by giving and taking, right? Give on some things, take on others, and it's a back and forth. But it still comes back to communicating what your wants and needs are. You know, you can sit down and give somebody a lecture of what your wants and needs are, but if you're not listening to what the other person is responding back to you, you're not communicating effectively. And it's not going to work. And if you keep coming off, especially with owners, guys, if you're an owner, if you keep coming off of being a hard ass, your employees will slow down on purpose. If you make them feel like crap, I guarantee you they will not do the heavy lifting for you when you need it. But if you treat them fairly, and I know, Amos, I can hear you right now. Employees are the death of everybody. No, they're not. They're not. You know, I've had some really great employees over the past. And if you've been part of this channel from early beginnings, you probably remember some of the stories that I told about of becoming foremans of groups of misfits. Yes, of misfits. And what are misfits? It's a classification of people that are unwilling to do anything. And they're ones that the other bosses don't want anything to do with because they can't get them to do anything. So I was given a band of misfits. And the first encounter I had with them was I asked them all to sit down around a table. And we had a good, open, and healthy conversation. I looked and I asked, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How can we shine? What can I do to make it easier for you to get your work done? How can I support you? Let me tell you right now that if the shit is coming from above, it's not going to go downhill to you. It's going to stop at me. Because I'm going to take responsibility for anything and everything you guys do. Unless it's someone giving praise. And if they're praising us, you're going to get the credit for it. But if you screw up, I'll take the hit. And we'll move on. As long as we learn from it. And I took that band of misfits that nobody wanted to work with. There wasn't a boss around. And made them one of the strongest teams of group. We got a lot done. We shined. And it left people scratching their heads of how did he take these people that nobody could get along with and turn them into a well-oiled machine that was putting productivity out. And it's simply because I sat down and I listened to them. And I let them know I had their backs. And I encouraged, let me know what you're strong at. And I can team you up with someone that's not strong where you're strong, but they're strong in something you're not. It didn't mean that I was the greatest boss out there. It meant that I was able to communicate with them, and they were communicating back, and they knew they were being listened to, where they hadn't prior to that. If you want an effective team, you have to have it be a two-way street. If you find your head butting with your employees, maybe it's because you're not listening. And if you head butt enough, they're going to stop listening. Because why? You're not, they're going to quit trying to tell you how to right the ship because you're not listening to them. You don't have ownership in somebody just because you give them a paycheck. That paycheck is for doing quality work. But in order for that person to do quality work, certain things have to be met, right? And it doesn't only stop there. It also, how you are communicating effectively with your customers. Back to running a shop. There are certain levels that customers come in at. But the biggest thing is, I ask the customer, what's it doing or not doing? And I'm listening to what they're telling me, what they need fixed, and what it's not doing. And sometimes it's simply not the unit that's the issue, it's how they're trying to use the unit. So I try to effectively communicate back. This unit was either not meant for this, or this is how you start it. I've had people, even myself, of what I call like the weed trimmers, over generations of weed trimmers. Used to be, you did it a certain way. 3 pumps on the primer bulb, and put it on full choke, give it a crank a couple times till it puts, then take it down to off choke, give her a pull, and she'll start right up. But even the newer ones now, they want you to pump it 10 times, put it on full choke, pull it 3 times, put it on, even if it doesn't putt, put it on the 3/4 choke, pull it 5 more times, and then put it on mid choke, and then when you pull it and it purrs, then take it off choke. So if they're doing it the way the old machine was, 3 pumps, full, half, and off, it won't start for them. They're going to crank their asses off. A lot of times I can just show them. It's right on where the choke is. It tells you how many pulls to get it to start. But that doesn't take place unless you're able to communicate. And it isn't, when you're communicating this, you don't want to communicate this in a way that makes the customer look stupid. Because I always tell people when they're in a situation of where it's not working, we always say, look, it's happened to us, so that you're not ostracizing that one person. And I don't have those talks usually if there's more than one customer in the shop. If there is, I'll take their unit and go outside with it and talk with them. Does it lose a job because it now works? Yeah. But it's given that customer a trust where they trust you now. And they will bring back if there is something wrong. Because you were honest enough to communicate with them, this is the new way of doing things. The old way, like you and I remember, it don't work no more. You got to do all this crapola in order to get it to run. Good or bad or ugly, this is the new and improved. And I've had people come in with chainsaws that wouldn't cut because the chain was simply dull. And they wanted to throw the chainsaw. Well, if you nicked a rock or a nail, and all you smell is smoke when you're trying to cut something? Common sense would tell you the chain is dull unless you have never been around a chainsaw that had a dull chain. So that becomes a teachable moment, right? Right? A lot of times what I'll do is I'll throw the bar right in the vise with the whole unit, and I'll sharpen the chain for them as they're watching me. I don't expect them to learn how to sharpen that chain. But we sharpen chains, and we get paid to sharpen chains. So if you don't want to sharpen chains, bring them to me. I'll sharpen them. Buy 3 or 4 of them and use them until they're all dull, and then bring them back, and I'll get them all sharpened up again. And we do it both ways. If it's just a couple chains, I do it by hand. I think I can get a saw a lot sharper by hand than I can with the chainsaw chain grinder. And I don't think I take as much off from it as the grinder does. But if you bring me 8 to 10 chains and you drop them off, good chances are I'm going to use the grinder, because my hands with carpal tunnel after a couple chains have had enough anyways. But it's a teachable moment of communicating effectively to the customer. Your saw is fine. You must have hit a stone or a nail. We've all done it before. And now the chain is dull. Well, I just bought it. I understand that. And the other thing is, it makes me scratch my head. I don't say it outwardly, but I'm thinking, wherever they bought that chainsaw, didn't anybody sit down and talk to them about it? About how to use it safely? What protective gear you should have on? I mean, it scares me when someone can just get one of these in their hands and just turn them loose. I mean, it's an accident waiting to happen. I mean, I can remember in my younger years with a saw of having my jeans and nick marks in my leg of where the chain just touched it. And I can show you in my chaps of where it hit the chap and not my leg. Hit the wire mesh that's in my chaps. I don't know how many times I got chips of wood in the corner of my eyes and stuff because I didn't wear proper safety gear. But I take that as a teachable moment with being effective in communicating, of showing the customer, because usually I have them either in the shop or the truck, my gear. And I show them each piece, and I show them why I even wear it to this day. I take the time to show them, and I communicate in a way so that it's at a level that they can understand. You know, instead of explaining all the features the chainsaw has on it, I'm teaching that customer how to use that chainsaw. There's more to using that chainsaw than just starting it and going. But it all comes back to effectively communicating with your customer, with your employees. And I would say the biggest thing is being grounded enough to know that you don't know everything as well, and that your customers and your employees can teach you a thing or two. So on that note, just give that some thought. Whether it be the relationships you have with friendships, the relationships that you have that are partners or better halves or spouses, the relationships you have with employees if you're a store owner, and the relationship and how you communicate with customers. The better you become at being effective at communicating, the better things will be for you and them. And with effectively communicating comes being a good listener too, and listening to what they're bringing to you. So on that note, you guys have a great Monday, and we'll catch you here bright and early tomorrow morning. Again, thanks so much for watching.